political rival is where you're coming up maybe in a promotion situation, and in the book we sort of articulated it around a fictitious company where somebody was going for a promotion and their only other rival was somebody who had this reputation for playing it dirty and for doing whatever it took to actually win over. And there's a couple of things that are important here, is that, as I've said already, that politics is an inevitable part of organizational life. You are already doing it, even if you don't realize it, because any attempt to influence is a political act. What's different here is between you and the other person is there's a difference in values, and it's where the values start to clash that potentially you've got some room to maneuver and start to do it in a different way. But number one is be aware of what's actually going on. And so, or that you're in that situation up against somebody, you'll probably know it quite readily, but you've got to be thinking clearly. And the first three, and I'm going to give you 3 tips, and then I'm going to call in on my colleagues to come in and start to give alternate views. The first really important point is to play to your own strengths, not those of your rival. It's a bit like when you're in this situation, there's a game going on, and whose rules are you both playing by? Because when you're at loggerheads with somebody, if you are, the political rival is likely to be the protagonist, the one who is out to get you and to pull the rug out from under your feet and demolish your chances of success in whatever contest is going on, and they'll be playing it dirty. Now the decision you need to make is, do you go over onto their side and play it dirty with them? I doubt you will want to do that, but they will be trying to tempt you into doing that. The problem that poses for you is they're pretty good at it. They're well practiced at it, and they're going to be able to do it much better than you. So what I'm suggesting here is you need to look at how you can start to reframe the situation in the bigger decision-making body so that it has to be played more to your rules, which is the openness, the authenticity, the right way of doing things, the win-win type approaches. So whatever your rules are or your values are, rather than those of the person that you're up against. Because then potentially they're going to be on the back foot. They're the ones who don't know how to play it straight and play it well like that, and potentially you can then use your capabilities to actually outmaneuver them in a very high integrity way, and they will be exposed for the nasty politician that they actually are. That's the theory. Doing it is a little bit more tricky, but remember this: try to change the game, change the rules of the game, of the contest, so that it favours your strengths rather than theirs. The second thing to do is, and if you've done the stakeholder management approach that I've got on the agreement and relationship, we've got enemies as one of the key parts of it. Political rival is really down there in that enemy camp where there is a limited amount of trust, limited amount of agreement for what it is you want, i.e. you being promoted and not them. And so there's a very fractious relationship going on there. And in the videos, and this comes down in part 5, that if you haven't already been down there, one of the things I say is to almost like ignore your enemy. And by that, it's point number 2 here, which I'm suggesting, is to put your energy into influencing the decision makers, who are not your rival, because that is a soul destroying act, trying to work with them. So influence other stakeholders around the decision that needs to be made, work with them, and this is how you subtly start to change the rules of the game and actually bring the political rival onto your playing field rather than letting them have the control and running the game the way they want to. But you've got to then engage with these other people. And the final point before I call my colleagues in is thinking that, well, I mean, in this situation in the book and the way we positioned it, it was about a promotion. There's no right to promotion, and it has to be earned. And the way you have to earn it is by getting good at managing people's expectations, managing your career stakeholders or the stakeholders around the issue where you're up against somebody, so that you can influence through what needs to be influenced through. Because you're on this program, you're doing this course, and you're working with me, I hope you're going to be fueling that with lots of high ethics and high integrity, and using the toolkit that you've got now to actually make a big result for the organisation. But it is a part of your job. It is a part of your job to go out there as an influential leader and influence. But if you do it in a positive way, political rivals won't have that chance to even get in the first place. So to avoid this in the first place, get really good at influencing so they know not even to try, and that would be a wonderful result. So James, you're the master of the technology and the chat log. So I wonder if you could bring somebody else in while I have a quick water break.
Certainly, and I do have a question on the queue right here, and we have David who has joined us. David, if you'd like to weigh in right now, and maybe I can seed the discussion. When we talk about political rival, to me that is a judgment label that we may have applied to the relationship. How many times, Colin, is there actually not a rivalry there? There's just a person operating by their own rules, but because we might not be getting what we want right away, we interpret a rivalry.
I think it would be impossible, James, to actually give a number or a probability. But I think instead think about in terms of giving people a chance, because a lot of the time, and I do see this quite a lot, people talk about their enemies, but actually when they dig beneath the surface, they do the political analysis. There's actually just something different in the agenda, and it's not out on the table. So there's something that, in a way, the enemies are misunderstood. You do the political analysis, you attempt to start to build some of the relationships, and you realise, oh, blimey, oh, okay, that's where now I understand. And so almost because of the high-level conflicting objectives, the work objectives that the two people have got, they get into this trap of assuming the worst of the opposite side, rather than actually talking and sorting it out and negotiating and working out what to do for the best. So I would always like to think, give people the benefit of the doubt until you've got proof positive that they're playing it dirty, and then act swiftly to seal it.
So in those situations when our first reaction may be to look at it with a negative filter, and we start feeling a lot of stress, and our day becomes worse, and we become cranky with our relationships, do you have tips or strategies for having maybe a cooling off period, or a way to not let this affect us personally?
Just don't do it.
Just don't do it, huh?
I mean, I'm sorry, that's a bit of a glib response, but the more often you actually objectively look at the stakeholder's position and do the analysis, and it's only through going through the analysis you start to realise, there could be something else going on, and it could be this. And that's when you start to realise that maybe your assumptions were wrong, or could have been wrong. And so do the analysis would be my quick tip.
Very good. I think David would like to weigh in on this. Hello,
Come on in,
David.
David.
Good morning.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. How are we all today?
Very well.
Yeah, good. That raises a really good point about whether they are truly rivals. And I guess they're assuming that they are game playing and trying to win one over on us, then it's about, as James was alluding to, the strategy for dealing with that. And the old flat earth strategies, I guess, of burying our head in the sand or trying to get as gamey as them, we find don't work. And it's very much about playing it down the middle, being authentic, calling it challenging, but playing with a straight bat all the time, I think. And if we can remain authentic and genuine in our approach, and it does need addressing or standing up for, in a sense, but rather than playing the game, just call it and look for a way out. And whether indeed I think they are rivals or true rivals or not, finding that common ground. I think, Colin, you mentioned it's just that we don't look enough, I think. It is a mindset thing, as James said. We fall into so easily conflict and opposite positions instead of looking for the common ground.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think
think that's
you're right. Yeah.
a really good point.
Yeah, and I think, if you're listening to this and wondering, what David's sort of alluding to there, go to the video on the antidote to office politics, because that's where we talk about how to take this more objective, more ethical, more authentic approach. But there is a risk. And there is it does take a step of courage, but the preparation that you can do by looking at the articles, thinking about it, talking to other people can empower you to get on and do things in a different way. But you're not going to win 100% of the time. But if you win more times than you lose by taking that, you'll feel good, even though you've lost some of the time. If you start to play against your values, i.e., start to do it in a negative way, in a gamey way, you will rue the day, because it will create what they call, a cognitive strain. I think it's a cognitive strain within your mind and your emotions, which will hurt, potentially even physically, causing that stress and strain. So the closer you can behave towards your values, the better you will fare.
Yeah,
Well, okay.
sorry, James, go on.
No, I was going to lead right back to you, David. Please continue.
The other thought that you raised and James alluded to again was that the political rivalry, I think, never gets sorted at the level it's created. It's a bit like logical levels, or thinking about are we able to solve the problem at the same level it was created at? And I think there are some well-founded principles that say you can't sort out a situation like that at that level. And it I was brought to that by Colin saying, actually think of the bigger picture and who the other decision makers and individuals are. And the latest experience I've had of that was a client who was struggling with two rivals indeed, looking to protect their turf and grow empires. The only way around it was to actually work at a higher level, take himself above that day-to-day interaction, and make sure he was influencing the individuals and the decision makers at the next level up. So, I think what Colin said about ignoring them to some extent, but start and work at the next level. It's the only way it will resolve. And that involves, of course, communicating more. And it's something I think we all don't do enough of, is communicating our strategies, where we're going, what we're doing, and why. We just try and get on with it, and it's not enough to just do a good job today. So the communication piece, and communicate at a higher level, for me, is the...
before we move on, I just pick up on one little thing there, David, which I think is a nuance that we need to be real about, is that, and then we'll move to the next one because of time progressing, but the notion that you tell everybody everything is not what we mean here. Or certainly that's not what I mean. I mean, yes, openness, yes, honesty, but do it in a judicious way, particularly if you're in a very political environment where there's a lot of dirty tricks going on. It would be wrong for me to let people go away from here saying you've got to tell everybody exactly what your agenda is. No, be careful about it, be a little bit coy, build the relationships, begin, and we'll see in the next module about how to build trust, and progressively let people into your confidence about what it is you're trying to do, rather than just going, there it is. So be a little bit judicious is what I would say. We're not trying to advocate you just go and mindlessly share everything that you're trying to do, because there will be political rivals out there who will take advantage of it, and we don't want to put you in a worse position, so think about it carefully.